Anyway, I wanted again to talk about what an awakening experience is and how come everybody isn't awake. That's sort of the theme for today, looking at the various resistances and what comes up along the way, preliminarily and then ongoing. So we have better understanding of that. So for me to confirm an awakening experience, I want to see three components. One is a deep experience of absence of self. And absence of self, traditionally we'd call in Buddhism no self or not self. And normally when we are asked who we are, we do a self-referencing check-in. We know we're this physical body. We know we're this certain viewpoint, location of perception. And then there's a variety of ways we can know ourselves based on things like name and age and geographical location, family, all those kinds of things, even profession or work. And with absence of self, we can't make contact with those identification pieces. So when someone is deeply in absence of self, they won't be able to answer the question, who are you? And there's a particular kind of way they answer. So it isn't that if somebody were to come into interview on a retreat and say, I don't know who I am, there are certain ways that I'm checking for that and asking and looking. And so there's ways that can be revealed. So that's one component of the awakening, is a deep experience of the absence, the emptiness quality of the absolute. The second is a deep unity experience, love. So oneness, love, unification, unity, everything is the same fabric of oneness, which includes us. We can have a subjective experience of that where I'm seeing, there's an eye or a perception, location of perception, and I'm witnessing in a certain way the fabric of oneness or the unity, but I'm not included in it. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for the objective view of unity, of oneness, that includes us, whatever we are. And then finally, there's a third component. There needs to be the recognition, this is who I truly am. So it's a recognition of the absolute, because we're talking about the unmanifest absolute in the experience of absence of self, and we're talking about the manifestation function of the absolute in the love, the unity. So it's basically the absolute is awakening to itself in a particular location, in a particular consciousness. So at the time, it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like I'm having an awakening. There's just this awakened realization of reality. When you take away all the filters and all the concepts, we're in touch with reality in a very direct, immediate way. And awakening can last different durations. I've had people report they had 1 minute awakening or Kensho experiences. Anything that's a very short duration can't be confirmed simply because those three components could be present in that 1 minute experience, but they're not going to be in evidence later. It'll be a concept, the idea, the memory of the experience. Where if someone is in the experience of Kensho, then that's much easier to detect, to test, to probe, and to confirm. And so typically when I'm working with somebody, I'm looking for a deep experience of these three components. If it's too shallow, if they have these three, but it's, in my language, it's not life-changing yet, then I'm not going to confirm it. I'm going to keep them working wherever they are until there's a deeper experience. And this is fairly typical among the Zen teachers, that we're looking for deeper awakenings, particularly with the first koans. Mu is usually the first koan. So looking for a deep realization, a deep awakening. And the depth of the awakening is depending upon how long the experience lasts. As I mentioned, I've had reports of 1 minute Kenshos. I don't know if that was actually what it was because I wasn't there at the time. And it can go up to months, where the normal personality isn't present. It doesn't mean there aren't personality behaviors showing up, but there just isn't a sense of self. It can last quite a while. The first times it happens to someone, it can be very destabilizing, very, I won't say upsetting exactly, but disconcerting. Because what we normally use as our foundation, which is a sense of self, a sense of who I am, based on my memories and experiences and all the markers of me I mentioned earlier, those aren't available. So I can recall having this experience and waking up and not knowing who I was. It was like you see in entertainment, somebody with amnesia. Just, it isn't like I don't recognize anything, I don't know how to tie my shoes. That's not the way it is. But the normal sense of self is missing, it's absent. We can still fully function. We still know we like this drink over that drink, or this meal over that meal. There's still preferences, but they're not rooted in a sense of self. They're just, I happen to like this, or this attracts me. So it's a different kind of relationship that happens. And so at some point for everyone, the components of the awakening will fade and the remnants of the personality will once again reassert. And I say the remnants because if the awakening, if the Kensho is deep enough, some of the perception of self changes. It gets purified, let's say, in the experience of the Absolute. So things are different. You're a different person afterwards. It takes some time to get to know who the new you is. And you do it by simply being open and questioning. I've told this story that I remember after a retreat having experience like this, and I was getting a ride with some people and they wanted to stop for ice cream at an ice cream store. And I typically pick one or two ice creams are my go-tos. And I went in there and really looked at the whole range. Of course, being America, we had many choices. And I looked at every choice, even sampled some, and I ended up picking my normal ones. But even saying that, I did go through and I was open to having something else. It's just the ones I usually picked were the ones I liked the best when I tried them. So, but it's that openness, it's that exploration. It's coming in and meeting our life with an attitude that I don't know exactly what I want. I don't know what I like exactly. And so we bring a freshness to life at that point. We're exploring the new me and seeing how that new me functions in the world. So as I mentioned, eventually the remnants of the personality reassert. And of course, everybody's disappointed at that when that happens, because everybody hopes it's going to be permanent, which it usually never is, and almost never. So, but it gives us a good taste. We see this is who I am, and when we're in personality, there isn't ever the same level of conviction. One of the markers in the Theravada tradition of stream entry is the loss of personality view. People often interpret that to mean that there's a loss of personality. I'm going to become just this blankness instead of having a sense of self or a kind of clear identity. And it isn't like that at all. And so we still have the remnants, still have the workings of the personality. Again, there's a certain amount of disappointment in that, but there needs to be purification. And part of that purification is understanding the core beliefs and convictions that we carry. We all have beliefs and convictions about who we are and how the world functions. And some of those are deeply set to where until we're ready and we have enough support of the Absolute that we can question those are going to be operating. And also there are a lot of beliefs about ourselves that are unconscious. We can't actually see them. They're held as so true, which is subjective. So we're holding it, this is how I am, this is just how I behave, this is the way I do things. And so that is a really core belief. Once it shifts over to, this is one of the ways I behave, this is one of the choices I make in my behavior, then that becomes objective. We can see it as a behavior, and that means we can begin to work it. But as long as it's closely identified, as long as it's veneered to our sense of self, it can't be worked. And this is why it takes at least months, if not many years, to continue deepening and expanding a realization to the point that it becomes where we're landed and what's functioning primarily. So I've done a lot of talking. Let's go and do some practice and start making contact with some of this.